Okay, so let's just briefly discuss the buttons of interest to us when we're doing compound interest calculations. So the first one of interest is the ONC button. That's just going to clear our screen. We're also going to be interested in the mode button, and we're going to be interested in the mode button actually to do with the fact that it also represents the CA button. So that's to do with our second function button. So if we push second function CA, it's going to clear the things like the PYs, the RYs, and everything like that. We'll also be interested in the first row of all your buttons on your calculator, which is the N, the IY, the PV. Okay, we don't really care about PMT right now. We will later on. The FV and the compute. And these buttons are to do with, like, when you're doing your compound interest, your duration of the loan, the nominal interest rate of the loan, the present value and the future value of the loan, and the comp is the compute button. It's what you ask it to compute. So you say compute FV, it will calculate FV for you. We'll also be interested in the enter button. So that's like the third row of you have your comp, you have another button, and then you have your enter button, which is actually like your data button. So when you input your information, you push enter, it will store it in data. We'll also be interested in the PY button. So the PY button deals with the IY button. So we have to use second function to get to it, but it is where we're going to put in our compounding periods. So we first have to put in our payment periods. Then we're going to push the down arrow. So we're going to be interested in this button over here. And then it's going to display our CY. And that's how we're going to input our compounding periods. And that's pretty much all the buttons of interest to us when we're doing compound interest calculations. And the process will go pretty much like you put your calculator on by using the ONC button. Then you're going to clear your information. So you're going to use the second function button and then the CA, which is the mode button. Then you are going to put in your payment periods, which corresponds with your compounding period. So you'll say second function IY to get to the PY showing up on your screen. You'll enter your PY as your compounding period. So if it's compounding monthly, you'll put in 12, compounding quarterly, you'll put in 4, and then you'll push enter. And then you'll check your CY by using the down arrow. And then once you have that corresponding correctly, you'll push the ONC again to clear your screen. And then you'll start putting in the values for the N, the IY, the PV, the FV, depending on what you want to solve. And then the one that you want to solve, you will say compute and push the button of whichever one you want to solve. And let's go do some examples with this. Okay, so this example is just a copy and paste from our video where we use compounding interest and we worked out the present value. So on the screen right now, you see there's already working out and you already have the answer. But the idea is so that we can just compare the two, like what you needed for your formula versus what you're going to need for your financial calculator. So the example is after 3.5 years, the investment value is 21,930 Rand and 47 cents. If the capital was invested at 15% per annum compounded monthly, what was the amount of capital initially invested? So that's our question. Now, when we did it via formula, we first took our compounding interest formula and converted the present value to the subject of the formula. Then we looked at getting all the things for our formula, which in our case was the future value, the effective interest rate, the compounding periods, which is the M. We needed that for our effective interest rate, and the N, the duration, where the units of N corresponded with the units of M. So there you can see it. We had N, we changed it to months to correspond with the compounding period, because remember it was compounded monthly. We had our future value, and we worked out our effective interest by first converting our nominal interest rate to decimal fraction notation and then dividing it by the compounding periods. Now, the nice thing about our financial calculator is it's going to do some of this work in the background for us. So this part here, the effective interest rate, it does not want you to work that out. If you give it the nominal interest rate and you're going to give it the nominal interest rate in percentage form. So you're going to give it exactly as 15%, just the 15. It will do the conversions for us as long as we give it its compounding periods. And we give the compounding periods it's one of the first things that we're going to give the financial calculator. So we're actually going to give the financial calculator the M, the nominal interest in percentage, the future value, and the duration. The duration is still going to be in the same units as our compounding periods. And then we're going to just ask it to compute our present value, and it's going to do it for us. So let's just go through what exactly our financial calculator is going to input. So first of all, the M in the financial calculator is CY, compounding periods per year. And to put in CY, we first have to put in PY. So we'll put in PY, and it's going to be equal to CY, and it's going to equal to the M that we're familiar with our formulas. Then we're going to have our IY. So remember those buttons of the financial calculator we spoke about? That's what we're connecting this information to. So our IY is going to be equal to our nominal interest rate in percent. Okay, so when we put in our nominal interest rate, it's going to be in percent, and that's what we're going to put into our financial calculator. We're not going to put in the effective interest rate. The effective interest rate, the calculator will do that working out by itself. It already has M and it has nominal interest rate, so it can do that calculation by itself in the background. Just as it's doing the formula in the background, it's going to do the sub-formula in the background as well. Then we're going to have our future value, and it is going to be the 21,930 Rand and 47 cents. And we're going to have to be a little bit careful about this because that's the one part of the financial calculator we're going to have to, baby the calculator with, and that's to do with the inflow and outflow of money. So the financial calculator needs you to tell it what is an inflow of money and what is an outflow of money. And it does that by using the plus minus button. So negative is an outflow of money. And if the value is positive, obviously, it's an inflow of money. And we're going to have to be very careful about the inflows and the outflows of money. So in this example, let's just go back to the wording. We have an investment. So we give the bank the present value. And that means that we don't have that money at that moment in time. So until the bank gives us that money back, we technically don't have access to it to use at that moment. The bank can use it. So if we're looking at this from the perspective of us, we don't have that money. It's an outflow of money from us when we give it to the bank. So the present value for us would be negative. And then when the bank gives us the money back, in other words, when the investment ends, it would give us the money back. That's an inflow of money to us. So our future value is positive. And if we put in our future value as positive in our financial calculator, what it's going to do is when we compute our present value, it's going to come up as a negative number to tell us that, hey, we actually did give that money to the bank for that period of time, kind of thing, to show that it was an outflow of money from us. So one thing just be very careful of with your financial calculator is the inflow and outflow of money, and to take that into account when you're doing your working out and when you put it in your information. Right, so now we have the PY, we have the CY, which is equal to M, which is equal to 12 in this case. Let's just fill that in. We have the IY, which is equal to the J in percentage, which is equal to 15. We have the future value is going to be positive because it's an inflow of money to us, the investment's coming back to us, of 21,930 Rand and 47 cents. Our present value when we compute it is going to be negative. What are we still missing? We're still missing the N. So remember the N was 42 months, and we still want it to be the 42. We want the units of N to correspond with the compounding periods, the CY. So we have N is equal to 42. So this is the information that we need for our financial calculator. Now, when you do the writing this out from, just from scratch from your word problem, you won't need to write this part here. You won't need to write that part there. The idea was just to link it up so you could see the two of them. Okay. Now, let's just go through the recipe for how we input it into our financial calculator. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go across like that. And let's put all our information there. Now, when we put it into our financial calculator, there's a recipe to follow. So the recipe that we're going to follow is we're first going to clear our data on our financial calculator, and that's the PYs, the CYs, all the leftovers. So that will be second function and the CA. And I refer to that often as stage 1. Stage 2 is we're going to put in our compounding periods. And to put in our compounding periods, we have to first put in our payment periods. So right now, we're going to say second function, and then push the PY button, which is the IY button, and the compounding periods, how many of them. So in our case, we have 12 because it's monthly, and we're going to push enter. Then we're going to check that it's actually stored like that for our compounding periods. So we're going to push down. And on your screen will come up like CY is equal to 12. Then we're like, okay, that's cool. And now we just clear our screen. Now, just a reminder that right now our payment periods and our compounding periods coincide because we don't have any payments happening. But later on, our payment periods and our compounding periods do not need to coincide. This is why I make you always check it now, because later on you'll start switching them up and there'll be different values. So this is just to slowly get you in the habit of making sure that you put in the correct payment periods and the correct compounding periods. But for simple examples where there is no payments occurring and they don't tell you what the payment periods are, the two of them are just going to coincide. And that is stage 2. So stage 1 is clearing your data, particularly your cash flows, your PYs and RYs and your CYs and all that kind of stuff. Stage 2 is entering your compounding periods. Stage 3 is entering everything else that you know. And it doesn't have to be in a specific order. You can just put it in as you have it. So I'm going to put in 42N first. Then I'm going to put in the positive 21930.47 future value. And then the 15 IY. So that's like my stage 3, just put in everything else. Stage 4 is asking it to compute a value. So compute PV. And that's our recipe. So stage 1, clearing your information. Stage 2, putting in your compounding periods. Stage 3, putting in everything else that you know. Stage 4, asking to compute what you want. So that's our recipe. Let's now go and do it on the financial calculator. So let's just move that to the side so you can see the recipe while we go ahead and discuss it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to always do is we're just going to clear some of our memory. We're not going to necessarily clear our variables. We're just clearing the memory that has the P1, the CY, etc. So that's the second function and then the CA. And the reason for this is, let's just have a look quick. If we say second function PY right now, it's going to show up as 12, and 12 is not the default value of 1. So you just want to bring everything back to the default values so that old calculations will not mess with our current calculation, the artifacts of the old calculations. So second function CY, we have the 1 showing up. That's the default kind of a thing that happens. And ONC, just to clear our screen, we could push the second function CY without saying second function PY to see it happen. So you would have just gone straight from the ONC there, second function CA, and you don't even need to push ONC in your case. Then we're going to input our compounding periods. And to input our compounding periods, we have to input the number of payment periods. So right now, our calculations don't involve any payments, but we're going to have to input them to get to our CY. Because if you say second function PY, and we're going to enter the same number for our compounding periods as our payment periods right now. So that is going to be 12 in this example. And we're going to push enter. Then we're going to push down just to check it. And you'll see there it says compounding periods per year is equal to 12. So now we're good on that front. We can push ONC to just clear our screen. And now we're at the point where we just put in all information we know. Remembering that we have to work with the idea of inflows and outflows. So if we are going to invest something, then it's first an outflow of money from us. And then at the end, it's an inflow of money to us. Our future value in this case would be positive. So let's put in our future value for this example, because remember, we're looking for the present value. So we have 21930.47 future value, and we have it as positive because it's going to be an inflow of money to us. We're looking at it at the viewpoint of us. And then we have our N was 3.5 years, but it needs to be in the same units as our compounding periods. So that is going to be months. So it's 42N. And then our interest was 15% per annum compounded monthly. And remember, on your financial calculator, your interest is in percent, and it's the nominal interest that you're going to put into your financial calculator. So whereas the formula used I-12, your calculator is going to use your J in percentage. So in this case, it's just 15 IY. Now we have pretty much inputted everything we need. So we're just going to ask it to compute what we want, which is the present value. So compute present value. And now you're going to see it says minus 13,015 Rand and 37 cents. Now it's a minus because it's seen as an outflow of money. So what's happening here is that when we give this money to the bank, we don't have it for use. So it's been removed from us to the bank where the investment is being made. And then when we get the investment back, we get in the money back. So now we have the money then, to use from that point onwards. So a reminder, your financial calculator, you need to have an inflow and outflow of money happening. So your present value and your future value are usually going to be of opposite sign for that reason. And you're going to have to also be careful with the interest, whether the interest is positive or negative in regards to that, so that you can manage your inflows and your outflows of your money correctly. When you talk to someone about this, you're not going to really talk to them as a negative amount. You're just going to tell them that, hey, it's 13,015 Rand and 37 cents. Okay, so this is another example where we've already done the working out using our formulas. And now we're just going to show you how to do the working out using your financial calculator. So again, this is just a copy and paste from finding the interest with our compound interest formula videos. So here's a loan of 6,500 Rand with a monthly compounding cost of 4,484 Rand and 45 cents in interest after 5 years. What is the nominal interest rate? So again, when you did it via formula, you would work out you'd be like, okay, this is a compound interest formula. You'd make your interest the subject of the formula. And in this case, remember your formulas use the effective interest rate. So it's the IM. And what you'd have to do in this situation when you're doing formulas is take your effective interest and then convert it to the nominal interest. So you'd first solve your effective interest and then you'd solve for your nominal interest. The upside to your financial calculator is it's going to give you the answer in the nominal interest rate straight away, which is great if you're looking for the nominal interest rate. You will need to consider if you were looking for the effective interest rate, you would need to make that conversion from nominal interest to effective interest. So just be very, very careful about that. And remember that your formula gives you your effective interest rate. Your financial calculator is always going to give you the nominal interest rate, the J. Right. The N is still going to correspond with your compounding periods. So if it is monthly compounding, your N should be in months, which is what we did here. So that part stays the same. We still need to know what our compounding periods is, except in our financial calculator, it's going to be your CY. We're going to need our present value and our future value, and this is going to be important. So there's our future value that's sitting over there, and there's our present value. in our financial calculator, we're going to have to consider the inflow and outflow of money. So let's just move the screen a bit so we have space to discuss the differences between the two of them. So let's move it that way. And let's have it like that. So for our financial calculator, we still have the PV. We're still going to have 6,500 Rand. We're still going to have the future value, and it's still going to be 10,984 Rand and 45 cents. We're still going to have our N, and our N is still going to be the 60. So you'll notice the N as 60 is going to remain unchanged. We've written down the value for the future value. We've written down the value for the present value. We are also going to need our CY. So we have the M there. We will write that as CY is equal to PY, which is equal to 12. So that's how we're going to represent our M in our financial calculator. The big difference now with our financial calculator is that one of the PV or the FV must be negative and the other one must be positive. So it is a loan. So if you get a loan of 6,500 Rand, when you get the 6,500 Rand, you have it, so you can spend it. So you would consider that one to be positive. So to be an inflow of money. Then when you have to pay the loan back, it's an outflow of money from you. So it would be the negative. So it would be the plus minus button. Now, I just want to bring to your attention that the minus button and the plus minus button are not the same thing. You will use the plus minus button to indicate a negative value. You will not use the minus button. Okay, so that's why I will use, when I'm writing this down, I would say plus minus. But what I mean it's negative, so it's minus 10,984.45. So that's all we needed for our financial calculator. So you can already see it's a lot less working out than with our formulas. Then we have to go through the recipe. Okay, so to do that, what we're going to do is we're just going to clear our screen a bit and bring in the information that we need. So that's the information that we need. Let's write down our recipe for our financial calculator. So stage 1 is always going to be clearing the information from the previous calculation. So that's second function CA. So then we have stage 2. And stage 2 is going to be entering our compounding periods by going through the payment periods. So we're going to have second function PY 12 ENT. We're going to then check that the CY is actually equal to 12. If it is, we clear our screen. And that's stage 2. Stage 3 is everything else. So that's going to be 6,500 Rand PV plus minus 10,984.45 future value. Okay, I recognize that my handwriting is horrible there. So let's just rewrite it so you can see that that is an F. And a reminder, once again, that plus minus is representing the negative. So our present value is an inflow of money and our future value is an outflow of money. Then we have our N, which is 60. And then we finished stage 3. And stage 4 is asking what we want to compute. So we want to compute IY. Now, the really cool thing about this is once again, our financial calculator is going to give us the answer as the nominal interest rate. So once we get IY, we're done. Whereas when we did it via formula, let's just remind ourselves about this. When we did it via formula, we worked out the effective interest rate, and then we had to convert it to the nominal interest rate, and then we had to convert it to percentage to get the answer. So your financial calculator does all that in the background without you even seeing it. And the answer it gives you is always the nominal interest in percentage value. And now we're just going to put our recipe on the side. And now we're going to show you how to do it on your financial calculator via the video of your financial calculator. Okay, so once again, we are just going to first just clear everything that we have. So by pushing second function CA, so we have done that now. Next up, we are going to put in our compounding period. So remember, our compounding period we put in after our payment period. So we say second function PY. We know this is monthly compounding, so we're going to push 12, enter. Then we're going to push down and see that our CY is now equal to 12, which is what we wanted. We're going to clear our screen. And now we're going to put in all information that we know. So the information that we know here is we have a loan of 6,500 Rand. So it's a loan, so we're getting that money. So it's 6,500 positive PV. And at the end of the loan, we owe the 10,984 Rand and 45 cents, or the 6,500 plus the 4,484 Rand and 45 cents. So we need to put that as our future value. So we have a minus because we're going to owe it. We need to pay it to the bank. 10,984.45 future value. And remember, our calculator has to have the inflow and outflow happening. Next up, we know it's for 5 years. And the years need to be in the same units as our compounding. So it's 5 times that 12, which is that 60. So we have 60 in. And we want to know what the nominal interest rate is. So we're going to compute IY. And you're going to see here it comes up as 10.54. So unlike our formulas, this already gives us our nominal interest rate. So we didn't have to do any conversions to get to this. So it automatically tells us what the nominal interest rate is. So it's 10.54% per annum compounded monthly. Need to be in